If you are in pain or are suffering in any way, know this: you are not alone. And as much as it may hurt, it is part of life. We can experience different types of pain throughout our lives, such as the pain of loss, illness, rejection, uncertainty, failure. None of us wants to experience suffering voluntarily, but each of us will suffer in life. Pain is inevitable, and feeling it is simply part of being human and part of life. Our goal in life should not be to escape pain and suffering. This would mean fleeing from the inevitable. Rather, our goal should be, as the ancient philosophers said, to learn to bear these trials well and to cope with them in the best possible way, with dignity, with strength, with wisdom, with courage. So, this video will not be about how to avoid or suppress pain, but rather how to build a new, healthier relationship with pain and suffering. The next 5 steps can help us here. First, distinguish carefully between what is directly under your control and what is not. This is the absolute foundation of the Stoic approach. Epictetus already said, "Don't seek that all that comes about should come about as you wish, but wish that everything that comes about should come about just as it does, and then you will have a calm and happy life." The Stoic approach of the dichotomy of control became the basis of the Serenity Prayer, made famous by Alcoholics Anonymous. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. We can ask ourselves here, which aspects of pain, suffering, or illness are within our control and which are not? Perhaps some of the physical discomfort is out of our control, but we might change the way we think about it or facets of our behavior. Second, separate your value judgments from the feelings. Our partner has left us. Pain of loss. We got a disease. Pain of the disease. Our job is in danger. Pain of uncertainty. We have not taken good care of our family in the past. Pain of failure. These types of pain cannot make us a better or worse person, but the way we respond to it can. Generally, we increase our emotional suffering by futilely fighting events and becoming frustrated with life. We should always remember that in all the events that may happen to us in life, it is not the events themselves that trouble us, but our judgments about them. Pain, suffering, and illness are not pleasant, no question about it. But we are adding another layer of suffering when we get too caught up in negative thoughts about our condition. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The mind is the ruler of the soul. It should remain unsteered by agitations of the flesh, gentle and violent ones alike, not mingling with them but fencing itself off and keeping those feelings in their place. When they make their way into your thoughts through the sympathetic link between mind and body, don't try to resist the sensation. The sensation is natural, but don't let the mind start in with judgments calling it good or bad. It is in our nature that we would rather not experience painful sensations, be they physical or emotional. But if these have already happened to us, wouldn't it make more sense to accept them instead of reacting angrily or frustrated? If we overload unpleasant sensations with our negative value judgments, we will suffer even more. On the contrary, if we avoid negative value judgments, we can eliminate a lot of emotional suffering and deal with the unpleasant sensations much better. Third, compare the consequences of fighting and acceptance. Let's take a closer look at the two alternatives. The Stoics often emphasize that it's not really pain that is our problem, but rather the fear of pain. As we have seen, our emotional suffering can be intensified when we resist things we cannot change. The Stoics want us to learn instead a healthy and rational attitude of acceptance. Pain, suffering, and illness are unpleasant, but we add another layer of suffering and make it worse when we allow ourselves to indulge too much in negative thoughts about our condition and see it as terrible or catastrophic. Imagine where this path will lead if you continue down it for months or even years. On the other hand, what would happen if over time we learned to accept the fact that some painful sensations are beyond our direct control? What if we took more responsibility for learning healthier ways of thinking and acting in response to pain? Fourth, practice letting go of inner struggle and actively accepting painful sensations. The Stoics compared life to a dog tied to a moving cart. If the dog tries to fight and struggle, it will be pulled along by the cart and dragged along on the ground. However, if he chooses to run behind at the same speed as the cart, things will go smoothly. Epictetus, for example, saw his own lameness as a physical obstacle, but not as an obstacle to his will. If we don't fight against unpleasant experiences, don't resist or get frustrated with them, but accept them, we make our lives much more pleasant. A very good example that this can really work and has also been scientifically researched is the 8-week mindfulness program developed by Jon Kabat-Zinn, commonly known as MBSR or Mindfulness-Based Stress Reduction. This was initially developed for patients with chronic pain. During these 8 weeks, patients learn to establish a different relationship with their pain and to accept it. They learn that the intensity of pain varies. They also learn to recognize when they are making negative value judgments, so they can better track how to respond to certain stimuli and impulses. Over time, they become more aware of and let go of their harmful behavior patterns that cause them to suffer even more. The result of this program is that for patients with chronic pain, overall well-being increases and perceived pain intensity decreases. Fifth, what coping strategies are available to me? One of the earliest cognitive theories of stress states that psychological distress is often due to an imbalance or mismatch between two factors: our perceived ability to cope and the perceived severity of the threat we face. When we believe a threat is insignificant, it's no big deal, and our ability to cope is strong, I can handle it very well, then we won't be very stressed. On the other hand, if we believe that a threat is extremely serious, this is a disaster, and that we are totally incapable of dealing with it, I just can't handle it, then we are likely to lose our temper. Another strategy the Stoics use is this. They ask themselves 2 questions about coping with painful experiences. First, what resources or virtues has nature given me that might help me cope? And second, how would someone I admire cope with the same problem? Each of us copes differently, sometimes better, sometimes worse, with the same challenge. Marcus Aurelius saw many examples of both sides. He decided to reflect on those individuals who cope well. He tried to learn from these persons by analyzing their character and way of thinking. One of these persons was a Stoic teacher Apollonius. He wrote about him: independence and unvarying reliability, and to pay attention to nothing, no matter how fleetingly, expect the logos, and to be the same in all circumstances: intense pain, the loss of a child, chronic illness, and to see clearly from his example that a man can show both strength and flexibility. We can learn a lot and be inspired by other people who have demonstrated strength of character despite health problems or painful experiences. This also helps us to strengthen our self-confidence and our perceived ability to cope, which reduces stress and emotional suffering. We have a similar effect when we consider how and with what skills and resources we have overcome similar challenges in the past. So, to better cope with painful experiences, first, carefully distinguish between what is directly under your control and what is not. Then, try to separate your value judgments from the sensations and compare the long-term consequences between struggle and acceptance. Once these are clear, practice letting go of the inner struggle and actively accepting painful sensations. Think about how and with what skills and resources you have overcome similar challenges in the past, how other people with similar painful experiences cope and take their attitude and behavior as a model. Marcus Aurelius wrote about pain: for times when you feel pain, see that it doesn't disgrace you or degrade your intelligence, doesn't keep it from acting rationally or unselfishly. And in most cases, what Epicurus said should help: that pain is neither unbearable nor unending, as long as you keep in mind its limits and don't magnify them in your imagination. And keep in mind too that pain often comes in disguise as drowsiness, fever, loss of appetite. When you are bothered by things like that, remind yourself, I'm giving in to pain. Thanks for watching. If you liked the video, subscribe to the channel, and more importantly, share the video with someone who can benefit from this content. Thank you and stay inspired.